I just said that's the thing. I'm gonna water after that. Oh, yeah.
Do you get extra for that? Do you get extra for babysitting?
Oh, no, I don't get extra. But I did email, and it says right on the front page of it.
Oh, it was.
45.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes.
In yellow.
In yellow.
Old, so you can all see it.
That is true.
Yeah. Good morning, Al. There it is, sir. Good morning. I want to thank you all. This is going to be an interesting meeting. This is my third year on the board. Every time that we had somebody on the board of commissioners, and it's probably the most difficult thing that I've had to do twice, and now it's the third time. What we're going to do is Paul Erickson heads the personnel committee. So Paul is going to be asking 5 questions of each of the candidates. We have a roll up here that we have all of our candidates' names and one person has withdrawn. And we're going to draw the names out, we're going to go in that order. Under the Open Meetings Act, everybody is entitled to sit in on the interviews. And as a courtesy to the person who goes first and second, I would ask you if you would kindly step out of the room and the people in front of you. What a cat. That's a courtesy to the other people. So there's not a go on their advantages. Everything that all of you have questions, 75 questions that we have. And when we get done with them, we're going to have a short discussion. The decision on everything we do, we hold committee meetings in the public 11:30. And the decisions are held at the regular meeting because that's when we have to do motions and adopt all the policies. So that's where I come up with it. Questions? Not yet. We'll have the questions. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Paul, it's all yours.
Yes, sir. The names we draw
They're right here,
Mm-hmm.
in the bowl.
in the bowl.
Why don't, we should call the meeting to order first.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If you don't mind.
We are ready.
You ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Beggs. Here. Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Erickson.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Approval of the minutes of the September 12th meeting.
Make that motion. Support Walker.
Motion made by Hardy, supported by Walker. Any discussion? Would there be any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Would there be any changes to the agenda?
The only thing that I would ask is that the discussion regarding the commissioner position be moved from the finance committee to this committee.
So moved.
Would there be any other changes to the agenda? Therefore, we will move that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Hearing none, we'll draw a few names.
Okay, who wants to draw?
No.
You want me to?
I would rather the clerk draw the
Yeah,
names
go
out
ahead.
because
Okay.
the 4 of us will be making the decision.
Joel McCormick.
Joel is first.
Joel is first. Rod Studer is second.
Rob?
Rob Ecoff is third. Roger Follett is fourth.
Follett?
Gina Loera is fifth.
Gina?
I think that's our last one. And Jeff Hiddema is sixth.
Mr. Hiddema?
There we go. Got them back.
Therefore, as Mr. Walker had mentioned, if you care to leave the room, you may.
Yeah,
Mr.
cool.
McCormick,
Thank you.
would you like to take the podium?
Good morning, Joel.
Morning.
Yes, sir. In no more than 3 minutes, please tell us about yourself and why you're seeking this position.
I'm involved in agriculture and developing businesses, own and operate and develop. So the last couple of years, I've been thinking it's probably time to get involved in some of the local administration. And I'm interested in the township I live in Shelby Township, and then this county position came up, and so I thought, well, I talked to a few people about it, and I thought that might be suitable for me, and I'd be able to be a contribution to the county.
This will expand it a little bit more. What positions have you held in the public and private sectors where you did set policy?
All of my own companies, of course, but no public positions. Anything that's close to it, I guess I'm a member of the Leadership Council for NFIB, and I was on the White Lake Chamber Board for 6 years, but no public position.
And if you were selected, what would be the first thing you'd like to address?
Looking from the outside in, I don't see anything that needs particular attention. You know, I'm happy with the county, the way it runs. I don't understand all of the departments and all of the players, and I'm sure there's a number of things that need to be addressed and looked at, but I don't have a particular situation that I see, you know, that needs attention.
Nothing out of public service prompted you to do this?
No.
Number 4. In 2020, the Board of Commissioners went from a 7-member board to a 5-member board. And we have several meetings out of town, as in Cadillac and Holland, Muskegon, Ludington. Do you see an issue with attending meetings outside of the county? And will your schedule permit for these meetings outside the board's regular meeting days on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays?
I don't see that would be any problem for me to attend.
It's really busy. There's a lot to do. And furthermore, what steps do you take in managing conflict?
Depends what it is, obviously. Try to put myself in the other person's shoes and understand where they're coming from. And obviously we're a business that has to make a profit. So I always have to look at the bottom line to make a decision. But, you know, you have to be a team player. You have to keep everybody working together. And so I guess, I can't really give you particular steps on how I approach it. They're just, the situations are so variable, you know, that, I don't really have a pattern, I guess.
So that everyone is aware in the room, could you tell us a little bit about your businesses and how you've grown?
My son and I started McCormick Sand in 2002. And that is, we have a mining operation and we make recycled materials. Most of our work is municipal and state work, road work, mostly, underground utilities. That's runs about 25 people. It's about, last year was about 12 million in sales. In 2006, we opened our first convenience store. Now we have 5. That runs, depending on the season, runs, you know, around 100 people. And the gross sales, it's about 30 million. And then we have fuel transportation, and that's 4 drivers. That started in 2014, and the gross sales is around 29.
Very good, thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Would there be any
Any other
questions?
questions?
Any questions, Mr. Hardy?
Excuse me, Joel, if you sit there for the rest of the interviews, you'll hear the same thing. As board chair, I want to thank you for expressing an interest in the position, and I want to thank you for coming in for the interviews and everything. Not real easy for people at times to do that, but again,
Yeah.
thank you for expressing an interest, and thank you for coming in for the interviews.
You bet.
And-
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks.
And Joel, we have no problem with once somebody has been interviewed, that they want to stay for the rest of the interviews.
Okay.
Yeah, so, Paul, do you want me to ask the next person to come in on?
Rod Studer.
Rod Studer.
You don't have to stay, Joel, but if you want to, it's fine. Good morning.
Good place to be. Your feet are on the ground. Oh, Mr. Studer, we have some questions here. In no more than 3 minutes, please tell us about yourself and why you're seeking this position.
A little bit about myself. I actually live in Shelby. I live at the Shelby Airport right next door. That's where I grew up. I lived in Ferry for 25, 30 years. Served on the board there, enjoyed that. I'd like to be the voice for the people of Shelby and Ferry. I know a lot of people in both areas, and I'd like to be their voice.
What positions have you held in the private and public sectors where you did set policy?
I was actually served several terms, the Ferry Township as a trustee on the board. I've served on the National Agricultural Aviation Association as a board member for representing the state of Michigan Association. I've served as president and several other positions with the Michigan board, or the Michigan Association also. Very familiar with how boards work, operate.
Very good. If selected, what would be the first thing that you would like to address?
First thing I'd like to address. Well, the first thing I need to do is get to know all the rest of the board members, because I know you slightly. Most of them are, you know, I've met Mr. Walker before, don't really know him. The rest of them are all very unfamiliar faces. So that's the first thing I'm gonna do is get to know the board I'm working with. The very first thing I'm gonna do is go to some of the people I know in Perry Township and Shelby Township and ask them, what's important to you? What do you want the board to know? That's my main goal.
You've flown over everybody's house.
I've seen everybody's house. I don't know where you live, but.
In 2020, the Board of Commissioners went from a 7-member board to a 5-member board. And we've got meetings out of town, as in Cadillac and Holland, Muskegon. Do you see an issue with attending these meetings outside of our regular scheduled meetings Thursdays?
I don't see an issue with making time for the board. I don't think that'll be an issue in my schedule. I'm sure your meetings aren't spontaneous. There's some obvious notification and you can plan for them. That's not an issue.
Mm-hmm. And what steps do you take in managing conflict?
Listen to both sides first. That's the main thing. You have to be open-minded. My philosophy is, if you don't believe what I believe, change my mind. Tell me, convince me why you're right and I'm not.
And for the people in the room, can you explain a little bit about your business and how you got there and what you do?
Yeah. It started 1988, phone call. Guy says, come to work for me. I was in college at the time. I said, okay. It was a summer job, and I said, okay. Worked for him for about 5 or 6 years. He helped me get my airframe pilot or airplane mechanics license and start on my pilot's license. He wanted out. My dad stepped up and said, buy the business. So Dad bought the business. Suddenly I'm working for my dad, and we've been working together ever since. I think he bought the business in 90 or 91, and we've been at it ever since. Just in the last few years, he has stopped flying. I've been doing all the flying, so that's been a little bit of an adjustment for me, but working out real well. My business, if you don't know, I'm a professional ag pilot. We treat farmers' crops during the summer.
Was that Hopper?
Is that what?
Was that Hopper that your dad bought out of Nunavut?
No, that's Hatfield, Bill Hatfield you're talking about. Ron May, crop care, the original crop care, which is the business we assume now, so the business name that we assume.
How many acres do you cover for the summer?
About 17,000 or so, it would take. Every year is a little different. Farming's always changing.
Would there be any questions? Mr. Walker, any questions?
No, thank you. I don't have any, Ron.
Okay, thank you.
Ron, I would like to thank you for taking the time and applying, for standing up here and doing an interview.
I was telling Rob in the hallway earlier, I said, you know, I ran for this position years ago. When Mr. Van Sickle was actually sitting in that chair.
Yeah.
And I beat him in Ferry Township, but I had a tough time in Elbridge. That wasn't an easy task.
Thank you for applying, Rob.
Yeah, thank you.
And you're welcome to stay.
Okay.
If you'd like to stay. And I will go.
Leave yesterday.
That's it. Right there. All right, podium's yours.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning.
Yes, sir. No more than 3 minutes. Please tell us about yourself and why you're seeking this position.
So my name is Rob Ecoff. I've lived in Oceana County for 32 years. Married to my wife Teresa. I have 4 kids. The ages 27, 25, 24, and 21. Was involved with Country Dairy for 31 years. Ran that company as the CEO for the last, up until this past January, I ran that for 7 years. Have served with local fire departments in Oceana County. Spent 19 years on Shelby. Have spent the last 3 years, I took a 6-year or 5-year time off. Should be spend more time with family, be with my kids. Got back on the Grant Township Fire Department here 3 years ago. Served as a lieutenant there, as the training officer as well. Have spent 3 terms at the New Era Christian School Board. I'm on there now. As far as that goes, served on the Building and Grounds Committee, Transportation Committee there. So yeah, that's my story. So.
Kind of covered a little bit, but what positions have you held in public and private sectors where you had to set policy?
Well, part of it was as the CEO of Country Dairy. We had to set policy there for the employees. Served, like I said, on the New Era Christian School Board. In those roles, I was on the Farm Bureau Board for Oceana County for a term. I was the Farm Leadership Chairman there. Different spots with the fire department. I was on the executive committee at Shelby. We were in charge of setting the policy for the department there. So that's pretty much the extent of those things. So.
And if you were selected, what would be the first thing you'd like to address?
You know, there's not, I will be honest, I don't probably come with any kind of thoughts on that. You know, part of it would be, how can we improve Oceana County? What can we do to make our county better? So we can have, try and figure out how do we boost more revenue so we can do more things without increasing any taxes or anything like that? How do we make those things, how do we make things more readily available and to improve the county? So.
And in 2020, the Board of Commissioners went from 7 to 5. And we have several meetings outside of our regular meetings with Cadillac, Holland, Muskegon on the various committees we serve. Do you see an issue with attending these meetings outside of our regular Thursday board meetings?
No, I don't. Like I said, I resigned as the CEO and leaving Country Dairy, so I currently have a part-time job and am available. It's really flexible schedule, so there won't be any issue as far as being able to make any of those meetings or having any kind of meetings beyond what you have here. So, like I said, I have a pretty flexible schedule right now. So.
And what steps do you take in managing conflict?
I think the best way you manage conflict is you go directly to that person. And I think you start with a one-on-one conversation with them and you try and resolve that conflict yourself. If you don't, if you aren't able to resolve it with that person, I think you bring another person in with it. I think you're always gonna run into life, you're always gonna run into people that disagree with you or don't like what you're doing. And I think it's very important that you state why you're doing what you're doing and why you got to where you got to, but allow them to have a voice in saying, giving you their side of the story. And then I think you really have to sit down and have the discussion. And if you can't get there, then I think you need to bring somebody else from the outside into it and have that discussion with them. So.
And for the people in the room, your last position, can you tell us a little bit about the responsibilities you had in that position?
So in that position, I was basically responsible for, our company was a $16 million a year company, and I was responsible for the budget and for overseeing all the departments. I had 3 or 4 managers that reported directly to me. I was the one responsible for setting vision for the business and seeing it go forward into the future. When I took over that role, we were at a deficit, probably facing some, within a couple of years, probably facing bankruptcy. Took it from what it was then to a really profitable business, and it's successful and sustainable now. So really was in charge of everything with running that business, as far as setting vision, budgeting, making sure that things were where they needed to be when they needed to be there.
How many cows?
We were milking 1,000. We were at our highest. We were at 1,400, but we got it down to 1,000, and we were actually producing more milk off those 1,000 than we were at 1,400. So it was a good move, but it was just time to move on. So
A little bit about your ice cream?
what about it?
Should I
brought some?
I don't know if you know him, but football, can I interject?
Yeah.
I think everybody around, all 4 of us gentlemen around the table can understand what the ice cream at Country Dairy is.
Oh, very good. No, thank
Any
you,
other
sir.
questions?
Any questions?
Rob, as I've said to the other first 2 people that came in, thank you for applying. Thank you for showing an interest in county and county government. We all realize it's not easy to stand up there and start asking questions, answering questions, but it's a task for us also.
No, I understand. So I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity.
But thank you for applying.
Yep.
And you're welcome to stay in for the other interviews. And if you have other work to do, we will be discussing the candidates after we're through with all of them. So.
All right. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Rob, and Rod, from the point of starting the interviews to the point of selection, everything is in a public sector. There is no closed meeting, there is nothing, everything that's said is said in a public meeting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mr. Follett, in no more than 3 minutes, please tell us about yourself and why you're seeking this position.
My name is Roger Follett. I'm 71 years old. I've lived in Oceana County a large part of my life, although I moved around quite a bit. I was a construction lineman for a while. I lived in several states. I like the idea of community service. The last place I lived in Basin, Wyoming, I served on the zoning board there for 4 years, 3 years as the chairman of the zoning board and felt that I contributed. We moved back here 2.5 years ago, and we've been involved in getting our place set the way we wanted. So I thought, maybe I'm getting there now. Maybe I have a little more time I can invest. I graduated from Hesperia High School, served in the Army. I was a lineman and an electrician. I worked as a maintenance supervisor at Howmet for a while. I worked at Hall Electric in Muskegon. I was actually shop supervisor for part of that time. Then I went to work for Newkirk Electric as a project supervisor, working projects, hydraulic dams, nuclear facility, and actually did a solar facility for them in Texas. Our children were all in the military. They all came back home. We were living in Wyoming, and they said, "Dad, it's time you came home." So we moved back to Michigan. So we like it here.
What positions have you held in the private and public sectors where you had to set policy?
As I said, I was a shop supervisor, which means I ran the shop and did bidding and kept people working for Hall Electric for quite a while. I was projects superintendent for Newkirk on several projects. In fact, I redid the cherry canning factory over here when I first went to work for them, supervised all of their new equipment installed. As I said, I've been on the zoning board in the town that I lived in before. Previously, when I lived in Wyoming, I served on several boards there. I was attached with the Head Start Association. My children live so far out in the country, they qualified because they didn't have anybody associated with. So I got involved with their policy council and became the head of the state parents association for Head Start in Wyoming. I served on a state board there on their advisor to the education board. I also spent a month in Washington, D.C., serving on a board there for when Ronald Reagan approved $5 billion expansion for Head Start, and I was the policy representative, parent representative on that board to determine how we needed to spend the money. So I have some experience.
If you were selected, what would the first thing you'd like to address? What would that be?
The thing that I'm concerned most, I'm fairly fiscally conservative, and I'm always concerned that are we in fact using our funds the most efficient? And that's, I think, would be, I'm interested in how we would use our funds. I'm not saying that we don't already use them efficiently. I'm not familiar enough yet with this county to make that determination. But I'd like the ability to do that if possible.
Thank you. In 2020, the Board of Commissioners went from a 7-member board to a 5-member board. And we have several meetings that are out of town in Cadillac, Holland, Muskegon, Ludington. Do you see an issue with attending these meetings outside of the county, and will your schedule permit for meetings outside of the board's regular meetings on the 2nd and 4th Thursdays?
Sure, it's not a problem. I'm retired. I don't have any hard and fast requirements at this point. Travel is something I've done all of my life. I was telling people I've lived in 13 different states. I was a construction lineman, so we moved around where the construction was. No, I don't have any problem with that.
And what steps do you take in managing conflict?
The first thing I prefer to do is, if there's serious conflict, is de-escalate. It doesn't gain anything, people being angry. We should be able to discuss our differences amicably and at least come to some compromise. I don't like the idea of forcing any issues that we can't all agree on, or at least the majority can.
Would there be any questions? Mr. Walker, any questions?
I don't have any, but Roger, nice to meet you to start with. And I wanna thank you for applying and expressing an interest in the county. This, as I said earlier, this is the third time that I've gone through this, and it's not any easier the third time to select one out of a group of people than it was the first time.
Well, I have to say, I was impressed that you had so many applicants. I'm glad to see that there's that much interest in politics and administration of the county. That's refreshing.
Thank you again for applying.
Yes, and you're welcome to stay.
That's all right, I have an appointment at the VA this afternoon, so thank you.
Oh, no, thank you, sir.
Roger, you probably heard me say that everything from here forward will be discussed in a public meeting. You know, when we're done with the interviews, we're gonna have a discussion, and then the formal decision will be made this afternoon.
I figured you would be.
So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
And you too.
Good morning.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
In no more than 3 minutes, please tell us about yourself and why you're seeking this position.
Well, we moved up here. I've always loved Oceana County, but we moved up here from North Muskegon about 3 years ago. Fell in love with it. Loved the diversity, the landscape, you know, the country setting. My background is in public administration and community development, and that's what I got my degree in. I've worked in kind of both sides. I've worked for the DDA in Grand Haven, and then the Farmland Preservation Program for Ottawa County. So, you know, I have a passion and a love for community development, and, you know, how we can work together collaboratively as a group of people in the community to improve the landscape for everybody. So I feel that with my background and with my perspective, seeing kind of both sides of the equation, that I feel that I'd be a good fit. So I figured I'd throw my hat in there. So.
What positions in the public and private sector have you held that you had to set policy?
So in working with the City of Grand Haven with the Downtown Development Authority, I did work with the executive director, who had to take some time off. So we did set, this is not exactly setting the kind of policy that you all are setting here at this level, but we did set policy for the DDA, for the different various groups like historic preservation. We, you know, for the different Main Street development, and then for Ottawa County farmland preservation. That was, okay, so that was not so much setting the policy, that was more following the rules. But I would say with the DDA was a bit more policy.
And if you were selected, what would the first thing you would like to address be?
I think transparency and communication is really important, with citizens and a governmental unit. I think that there may be some room for improvement there, I don't know. But I would love to see more communication available, whether that's, I mean, obviously we have, public comment, but it would be, if I was commissioner, I would want to open up that communication with my constituents and obviously get their feedback, because obviously Ferry Township and Shelby Township, we have a multitude of different backgrounds and people and new people moving into the community at all times. So I think that's the number one thing, and then you can produce good policy based on what the public desires.
In 2020, the Board of Commissioners went from a 7-member board to a 5-member board. And we have several committee meetings outside of town, travel to Cadillac, Muskegon, Ludington. Do you see an issue with attending these meetings outside of the county, and will your schedule permit for attending those meetings outside of our regular Thursday board meetings?
Which meetings are we referring to?
Well, like the West Michigan Shoreline Regional Development Commission.
And that's a monthly meeting?
Oh, they're monthly
Every
meetings.
other month.
Every other month,
Okay.
but, yes, the, personnel meeting is what, Mr. Morris was involved with, along with the West Michigan. We attend our alliance meetings. There's just numerous meetings outside now that we're sharing the load of 7.
Paul, do you mind if I help out?
Yep.
There's 2 members of the County Commission that sit on the 10 county, District 10 Health Department meeting. We meet the last Friday of every month, but along with that, I sit on the Personnel Committee and you finance,
Finance, yeah.
And Paul is finance. So Personnel Committee probably has 4 meetings up in Cadillac a month, along with the other meetings we have. Finance has more, so there's trips to Cadillac. West Michigan Community Mental Health is in Ludington. We do meet in Baldwin once a year, and we meet in Oceanaconie once a year. But those meetings are in the Baldwin. The one in Cadillac is normally 9:30 or 10 o'clock on a Friday morning. And the committee, all of their meetings, they try to hold on Friday. Along with community mental health, there is an oversight board for community mental health that meets in Holland, and it takes in Kent County and everything. I forget how many hundreds of millions of dollars it is, but the oversight board looks at all of those.
Yeah, and the openings that we have right now are fairly local, but Regional Shoreline, I think, was the farthest Phil had gone to, and Mr. Beggs is on the Road Commission, and I'm on the medical care. And, there's these other outside meetings. You can have a very full schedule along with your regular Shelby Township, Ferry Township. So.
Let me give you an example. Tim, do you mind? Tim had 4 days from meetings this week alone. And, we tried holding, when Martha Mayette was on the County Board of Commissioners, we tried holding meetings at 7 o'clock in the evening, and we did it twice. We didn't have a single person attend either one of them. So we tried evening meetings, they just didn't work out for us.
I would just add 4 days of meetings is a perfect storm. That's not the norm.
Okay.
So don't everybody feel bad.
I tied you this week, so I might eclipse you tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But it's within the realm of possibility.
With the lunch.
We feel as though it's important that somebody understands, that there are so many things, so many different things that go on.
Sure.
It used to be split up among 7 people.
Yeah.
Now it's split up among 5 people.
I understand. and I thank you for clarifying that, because that was one of my questions as far as the level of commitment there for the different meetings. I do have a busy schedule, but all of it is pretty much flexible. You know, the only caveat there I would say is, you know, being a realtor, I do have to put my clients first, and so working with buyers becomes complex, you know, because in this market, it's very hard working with buyers, and you can be running all over the place all the time. But I think I've already kind of accounted for that in my mind, and I think I will put a limit to the number of buyers that I would be working with in order to free up my schedule. Everything else is pretty flexible, and I can, you know.
The other thing about the District 10 Health Department, Community Mental Health, and the Oversight Board, when we appoint somebody to go to those boards ask for a 3-year commitment to it.
Okay.
So it's not as if, you know, we can change, because there's, you know, there's so many regulations and policies and everything in it. And in it, every time we go to something, Paul, with the health department, we learn something new.
And Gina, what steps do you take in managing conflict?
In managing conflict, I think the, you know, primarily is, you know, a good listening ear to understand where the conflict is coming from. Everybody has different opinions and different perspectives, and they have a right to voice those opinions. And I'm always open to hearing all sides of the story, because that's how you make the best decisions. But when there is a conflict or difference of opinions or perspectives, it's very important that both sides hear them out very objectively, and, you know, setting your own personal feelings aside so that you can hear them and kind of try to get an understanding of where they're coming from. You know, put yourself in their shoes. That's number one, so that you have a better understanding of how to then negotiate and come to terms with that disagreement.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay. I will go get.
Gina, from all of the board members, thank you for expressing an interest. Thank you for applying. Obviously, there's only one position, and we don't know where that's going. We're gonna have an open discussion. Everything, as you know, from the time we do the interviews, is gonna be in public meetings.
Yep.
You know, so, you're welcome to stay if you have other commitments. We understand that, but the final decision will be made at a regular meeting, which starts at 11:30.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. I
Thank you.
appreciate the opportunity.
You got the podium,
Good morning again, Jeff.
Morning, how you doing?
Mr. Hittema, in no more than 3 minutes, please tell us about yourself and why you're seeking this position.
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of District 2. I grew up here, went to Shelby's High School. I live in Ferry Township. Currently, I work for Muskegon County Parks. I've done that for the past 23 years. The last 10 as their park superintendent. I've also am serving on the Sheriff's Department Reserve Unit and the County Parks Commission. And I just figured I could bring that experience serving on those commissions to the county board. And some past commissions I have served on, I was the chair for the Ferry Township Zoning Planning Commission until 2023, and I was also on the Ferry Township Zoning Board of Appeals until that time. I served 10 years there, and I just figured, 10 years, it was probably a time for getting fresh eyes. So I resign that position, let somebody else take that position over. Also, I've always had an interest in government and serving the community through that. Actually, my major from Western is in political science, so it's always been an interest with me too.
What positions have you held in private and public where you had to set policy, if you could expand on that?
So I've had again, with the Ferry Township Planning Commission, and the Zoning Board of Appeals, so we've had to set zoning policies, enforce those policies. If people have applied or filed for variances, we either have to grant those variances or deny them based on the policies that we set forth in the Planning Commission. With the Parks Commission, we've just wrapped up our 5-year rec plan to help get us to the future of the park system for the next 5 years here. I've also done that in Muskegon County too. I've set their help work with their rec plans on that and with their master planning. Also, I don't know if it's a policy, but I've also done budgetary steps with my position with the Parks Department. Currently, our budget for the parks is $1.2 million, and that's a yearly thing that we do have to go through. Our fiscal year just starts on October 1st, runs from October 1st to September 30th.
And if you were selected, what would the first thing you'd like to address be?
Well, since I'm kind of partial to parks, I would like to maybe address if we could find other sources of revenue or funding for that department. I feel like we do a great job with the money that we do have in the park system. In fact, I'd like to shine a little light on Gary McKeon. He's done a great job as chair of that department. But that is one of my passions, since it's the field I'm in.
In 2020, we went from a 7-member board to a 5-member board. And, therefore, you serve on committees that are out of county, outside of the Thursdays we normally meet, odd hours, evening hours. Do you see any problem with having those commitments outside of our Thursday meetings?
I don't, because I do have a flexible schedule. I can work remotely. I can flex my hours to different times of the day based on the schedule that's presented to me, so that would not be an issue.
Paul, so Jeff understands, do you mind? Paul and I go to a meeting once a month in Cadillac.
Mm-hmm.
Often we have to go more than once a month, Paul with finance and me on personnel. We have meetings, Windsor Dick and meetings in Muskegon, which aren't too far away. Holland, we have meetings we go to for the oversight. Community mental health, we have meetings once a month in Waddington. So, and some of those boards, when somebody is assigned to it, they ask for a 3-year commitment to go to them. The Cadillac is the furthest one away. That's 100 miles away. So some of them can be a little bit difficult.
As long as I had that schedule in front of me in advance, that would not be an issue. I guess that's a question I would have. With this being a temporary appointment, would there be that commitment made for city when you're saying 3 years on board?
The decision has not been made, but I think for this appointment, at least until the first of the year, that it would probably go, Craig, do you think, to the committees that Phil had? And the only one of those that's outside the area is Windsor Dick. We're not going to rearrange everything on the.
Okay.
I think that's monthly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not
Every other month.
It's every other month.
Yeah.
We're not going to rearrange, for the 3 months, the other committees.
So basically, with the 5 members, there's 25 subcommittees.
Yeah.
Phil got appointed to some of those subcommittees, so.
Yeah, and with some of those committees being in Muskegon and South, that would actually work for me too. I could just be working in Muskegon and take off, go to those.
I think most of them are local with him. He was pretty local. But
Windsor Dick's the only one. That one moves around to the 5 counties every other month, but Lake County is the farthest. The rest of them aren't too bad. So, yeah.
And what steps do you take in managing conflict?
Managing conflict, just to kind of reference with my staff, I try to listen to both sides. I'll call them in separately or both parties separately. Try to get an understanding of the situation. Through that, I'll try and find out if there's a resolution that will be agreeable upon both parties or everybody that is involved with that. But I don't want to elevate the situation. Try to remain calm with them, talk it through, and see if there is a resolution that's agreeable upon both parties.
And for the benefit of the people in the room, could you give us a rundown on Muskegon County parks and what you're really involved in down
For the
there?
operations there, so I have 8 parks, 3 campgrounds, and the rest are day use. We just did acquire Dune Harbor County Park, which is 377 acres. It was a former sand mine that is in Norton Shores. So that's currently what we are under development for that, and we're working on a master plan for that. Pioneer Park, Blue Lake Park, and Minor Park are our campgrounds. So we have 235 sites at Pioneer, 25 at Blue Lake, 67 at Minor. So at any given time, in July, it's basically a mini city there. So we're dealing with 2,000 to 3,000 people a day at Pioneer. We do have a staff of about 30. That's including seasonal staff. They will be all actually leaving after this weekend because we close for the season. So we do bump down to 4 full-time staff after that, which it's not enough to manage the parks, but we do the best as we can.
And what's your opinion of our parks?
Our parks are down. They're a diamond in the rough, just like everything else, the funding. If we can find more funding, we can always make them better. But for Oceana County, we do have great parks.
Would there be any questions?
I don't have any,
No?
Jeff, not easy to apply for a job like this.
No.
It's not easy to stand up there and answer questions like this. All of us recognize that. And as I said earlier, this is the 3rd round for me. And guess what? 3 doesn't make it any easier to make a selection, in a group like.
That's why I thought about this. I didn't apply right away for it. I wanted to think about this in sense and see if this is something I could do. And after, talking with my family, I did have some other people in the community approach me about it. And just with wanting to serve the community, I figured, my skills and life experiences, I figured, it would be beneficial for me if I applied for it.
From all of the members of the board, thank you for applying. Thank you for it. And everything that we do from now going forward until the selection made is going to be in a public meeting. The discussion and everything, as you well know, and you're welcome to sit in on them. But if you don't sit in on it, we understand that also. But thank you again for applying, Jeff.
No problem. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Paul, if we have people sitting outside, is there anybody waiting outside?
No. That was all alone.
They all ran away. They didn't want to hear any more of this.
No. Thank you very much. We moved an item on the agenda, didn't we?
Discussion.
That was 2024.
Tim.
I guess I just want to echo what was already said. Like that, I was very happy to have had 6 people to interview this morning. I thought we'd be pretty lucky to have 2 to choose from, maybe 3. So I'm really excited that we had a great pool of candidates to look at and really make this a decision that we have to make, not just vote on. So I know they're not all here anymore, but thank you to those that applied, just giving us a great pool of candidates to choose from. So That was exciting.
Greg?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to make the selection. I think we have a 30-day window in order to make the selection. If Mr. Morris resigned the first of the month, that means that this meeting has to be the selection date. Normally when you're talking to a potential commissioner, I wish for more time. I wish for more personal conversations with people. So I do apologize for the shortness of time. And I think with most everyone that had to hire employees at some point in time, you normally need a little break in there to kind of think and make decisions. But I do appreciate everybody that did apply, and I appreciate everybody answering the questions that we had. And I know that's a difficult thing when you're put on the spot. And as normal, you'll leave and go, gosh, I should have added some other things to it. But again, thank you for everyone that has applied. Candidate selection.
Paul?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Paul, I'll go last.
You go last. No, I appreciate everyone applying. I didn't know we would have a pool like this. It's made it somewhat difficult to go through this name by name, but we heard some very good answers to some good questions this morning that I think will benefit us as a board. You know, what did happen to us in 2020 was not right, and it did increase the load on all of us to the point where our private time is pretty scarce, and sometimes we're spread a little bit thin with meetings. Tim attends 4 different townships. I attend 5 different townships. Robert does also. The Shelby Ferry one's a pretty darn good one because it's right in the neighborhood and it's always on your way to town. So,
Well, if I may,
yeah.
I don't know if anyone knew, this was a redistricting. We didn't have anything to do with it.
Correct.
The group redistricted and chopped it to 5.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Just,
Every 10 years after the assessment or the census are done, they have to do a reapportionment, and they have to divide the 7 districts. In our population, we can have any place from 5 to 9 commissioners. And they elected to drop down instead of increasing, but they have to reapportionment so everybody represents as close to the same number of commissioners. So it's equal across. So no, I don't remember and that is done by the one Democratic person, one Republican person, the prosecuting attorney, the clerk, the treasurer, and there's a one. I think that's the members. There might be one more person that do that. It's never been anything changed like this, like it did the last time. And it was drastic.
and we've had a realignment of our courts realigned. And in my district, I ended up with Joe Fox as another one of my representatives. I'm the only one that has Joe Fox. It's really aligned differently, but it's increased the load on everyone.
We could have taken the easy way out on this. I wish the other people I had said this to also. The easy way for the County Board of Commissioners would be not to appoint somebody within 30 days. If we do not appoint somebody within 30 days, we have to hold a special election for that position to the tune of probably $50,000 for
by
upward,
itself.
possibly $50,000 it costs the taxpayer to hold a special election. This board did not want to do that. We felt as though that we had the responsibility to make the decision, and not spend that type of money. It might not have been that much, but it would be at least $20,000 because it's a county-wide and all the polls have to be open and we have to pay for all the polls and It's a big dance if you don't do it. So, Tim, do you have any thoughts with, on where we should go from here?
But I think, we spoke before, I think it'd be good to kind of narrow our pool down. Seven is a hard pool to pull one out of. Maybe if we could, all give our top three and see if anything rises to the top in a list of top three, and then we can kind of go from there.
I think a good thought, but I want to say, before we each say what our top three is, there is not one person that I heard who was interviewed today that I wouldn't feel very comfortable sitting on the board with. Not a single one. There was different expertise from everybody, but I think that any of the people that we interview could represent the district well and sit on the board. It's kind of strange when you think about this. Here we have 4 members of the county commission selecting a member for a district we don't represent. But that's just the way it breaks down. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. My top three would be Robbie Koff, Joe McCormick, and Rod Studer.
Craig?
Hold on. Just let me, right, okay, go ahead.
Mine would be Jeff Hittema, Joel McCormick, and Rod Stewart.
I want to let the clerk and the administrator have time to hold it together.
And I do concur that all the applicants were great, and this is a very difficult decision.
There is nobody that we talked to today should feel slighted at all on us selecting somebody else. Nobody, because every one of them could have filled in. Paul?
Joel McCormick, Rod Studer, Jeff Hittema.
Do my fellow commissioners mind if I give a reason why I want my choices? Because everybody didn't sit on this. One of my choices is Joel McCormick. And the reason it's Joel McCormick because Joel said some things in a public meeting today that generally don't come out of a businessman. And I realized that Joel had the sand company, the excavation company, the trucking company, the fuel company, and the stores. I never realized how large they are. He expressed to us, and I'm not going to repeat it right now, but it's public information. He expressed the gross sales that they do in a year. Huge. And Joel was right on the bottom line developing all of that. They have, in their stores alone, they have over 100 employees, when they combine everything all together. In their trucking company, they have 4 semis that run, just for the fuel trucking company. And Joel has developed it. Joel is very involved with agriculture. His mother graduated from Shelby High School, so his family has family ties and stuff. Joel was a strong person. Rob Koff was the CEO of Country Dairy, and Rob had lots of employees when he did that also. The third one, I'd rather not even pick a third on myself with the two people with the business and public background. I'd rather not get into that. Roger Follett talked about his background in industry and his background in the private sector. Very good background for it. Jeff and Rod Stewart, I'm at a loss of which one to say. I really am. So, I guess if I could draw a straw and pick one, because I both think they'd both be very, very suited for it. And I guess I would say, because of his work that he has done on the county parks board and on the planning commission and stuff, it would be the only reason that Jeff would get the nod on it, because he has been involved in county government and he works in county government in Muskegon. But, you know, it's very, very tough. So I think from here, I think we're gonna go into making a selection this afternoon. Maybe each one of the board members will have a chance. We want the board members to have a chance to think about the interviews that we had based on 3 people and go forward. Can either the clerk or the administrator tell me who the top 3 people are, please?
Joel and Rod appear. Well, Joel is in everyone's choice.
Yeah.
Rod is in 3.
Pardon me?
Rod Studer is in 3. Jeff Hiddema is in 3. So those would be the top 3?
Yep.
So it's Joel, Rod Studer, and Jeff Hiddle.
Yes.
Correct.
Paul? I think we have to ask for public comment again, and then I believe we can adjourn this meeting. But public comment will give anybody in the audience the opportunity. And public comment is listed, limited to 5 minutes. But if somebody in the audience has a very, very strong feeling from one of the 3 candidates that are going forward, if there are opportunity to tell us, or even any of the candidates, they can still, under public comment, make a comment. So
Before public comment, do we have any department head reports? McGee?
Not at this time.
Okay. Public comment.
Janet Schultz, Nona Township. When Phil left, one of the things you said was his being able to use the computer and the data. You talked about his data-driven thing. That's one question that you didn't ask. Who can replace that, feeling of, keeping in the data? So I don't know if there's any way you can email those people real quickly and get any kind of information that they know about computers or keeping up with the data, but that was a big hole you said that Phil filled, so I want you to think about that when you're choosing this person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Morris always used to bring to us when we were looking at anything, we have to look at the data, and it has to be data-delivered decisions we make. And Phil, thank you for the comment. Phil used to tell us that all the time.
Would there be any other public comment? Being none, we'll adjourn.
Again, thank you. Can we take a break?
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. Sorry. I was-
Who were the three that are going forward?
Yeah, yeah. Prior, he didn't have the shop.
Joel.
No,
Jeff.
no, I've got
Yeah.
other engagements this afternoon. So. Thanks, appreciate it.
Those are top three.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Yeah, what time are you? 11:30? It's not easy getting up there and spilling your whole life story in 2 minutes. Is there a reason the topic of the questions isn't available? So you have a little, the public questions, you have a little bit of time to prepare. Because just like you said, you know, when the next guy comes up, it's like, oh, why didn't I say this and this and, you know, there's a million things that come to mind.
That is the way it is. I can tell you, it's been so many times I probably testified in court for 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of us have testified in court so many times. Again, this past weekend, they had the 50th anniversary for the Criminal Justice Institute right there. And I was one of the people who was that. Well, Dr. Pink,
There's three different ones. I started the temple. A lot of meetings here.
Oh, boy.
For the GOP.
Heat's on.
Precinct delegate, and all townships, so
Get it,
I feel it's important, so they've got
but.
properties, environment, and economic development, it's gonna be discussed, and administration, they go right into that, and then they have the annual report at 11:30. So it's a lot. When I looked at the schedule last night, I'm like, 8:45.
I was kind of glad to see the crowd. I didn't realize, I knew Rob was gonna be here, I know Rob. And I knew Joel was gonna be here, but when the crowd started thickening, I'm like, you know, this was kind of nice, why not?
They're things that I can't.
I was telling Rob, you know, I fly all summer, so it's, you know, you get away from that. Well, you fly much?
I know, Tim.
Like, you know, no, I do other things. Last night, my wife, I said, let's go for a ride. And we just jumped in and flew around the county. It was absolutely great.
Ronnie, what are you doing?
Not much, you?
Catching up.
It's the right day.
Yep.
Okay.
It's Thursday.
Turn the ballot over and go, oh, well, I don't
Keep track of
know. I don't even know what.
It's been a week, like we were saying, it's meeting week.
I'll vote for that.
He didn't
We
get
need
that.
to change that too.
5 days.
We're aware, and of course,
Too much.
how much the GOP is.
How many commissioners are you down right now?
Just one.
I hope so.
Will they notify everybody or just,
It's not
Well,
been.
they'll contact everybody.
And I've heard both sides. I've started staying until.
Okay.
Our poll did not. Yes.
Busy? Are you starting to get,
Really,
I have to start.
you starting to get deer hits?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the dumb things are standing in the road.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Am I gonna be on the board right now?
So,
So he's scaring them out of the woods and they're running into the dog.
I hear
You know, it's funny, the youth hunt,
This person who's the current chair. is trying
every
to-
Saturday night I spray celery in Brunswick. And there's always, when you pull up and turn, you look and there's always deer in the cornfield, always. Saturday, the youth hunt day, I'm over there, I'm like, oh, you know what, I didn't even think about it, but somebody can be mad at me. There's a hunting blind right on the corner of that
What the
field.
state does, I'm like, okay, yeah, you're
Pull
crazy
up,
on that.
look,
That doesn't
there's not a
mean
deer to
we
be
have
found. There's usually 30 or 40.
We're mad that Christine
I never saw one, the whole spray, the whole
Where'd they
thing.
go?
There's some real good reasons.
That's in the
They,
corner.
they know people that aren't normally there, they're walking in and they do something different.
So I'm not staying. So
They know when you got a
you
gun.
represent me.
Yeah.
What do you throw?
Yeah, I mean, they'll
A
come out in
crow
front of you
knows.
without.
A crow knows.
Gophers too, they get pretty
They'll
smart that
probably
way
ask
too.
for your name the next time I
You step
see
out of
this.
the car with a crow a half a mile away without a gun, and that
Maryland.
crow won't move.
Maryland,
You step
of
out of the car with a gun.
I was a teacher.
Turkeys.
In Grand Rapids Public Lands, but
You see them everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, but that's usually you have a gun in the
and
woods.
then we moved back up
They
here, Wayne
run from you.
grew up in Shelburne.
It used to be a big deal getting a turkey, remember? It was like a guy with a picture in a paper, he got a turkey. Now it's like, I
We
got
got off for the job in Shelby at Ferry Elementary.
I've been busy lately. I've seen you flying over the house a lot
Oh,
at
yeah.
night.
Yeah.
I think you just,
ended up,
got my dad's field a
taking
couple
a
weeks
job
ago,
at
right?
Yeah.
In special ed.
Yep.
You retired in
Yeah.
02 and I retired in 03.
I usually deal with Pete.
Yeah.
Special ed, we were both special
I'm
ed.
just glad we got rain.
I did not know.
Oh, yeah.
How's
It was so hard for me.
better than the fertilizer on the
26
Fergus
and a
field? Oh
half
my
years,
God, that was.
I
That was 2
enjoyed real
weeks
estate
ago.
a lot more. I was a realtor for 18 years.
They figure out what they're gonna do
You
with
really
the
should.
open ground there?
You know, we're still kind of talking about it.
Yeah. And now I'm doing a lot of nonprofit stuff and
Labor.
Labor is
trying
high.
to mobilize the churches and the Christians in Ocean County
Your
to
margins.
vote to care about government.
Hi, lady.
Get a lot of people out.
Hello.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. How's mom?
Not just.
She's good.
Good. You better have some here.
She doesn't behave very well. We went out of town for the weekend and she was doing things she shouldn't. Put her back out.
Going crazy, and I'm like, what the heck's going on with her? And it kept telling me motion detected. So I looked at my camera, and my door is wide open in my apartment,
Oh,
and
then
I'm
you're
like,
going over.
what the heck is going on? I have a camera that faces my door. Just peace of mind for myself.
The model went.
And next thing I see my husband walking through the apartment. I wasn't expecting it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was.
It went
Ron Elvis
on.
stuff.
Do you know if our old cars, are those still, will those still work? Will they still open doors and stuff?
I don't know, we may have shut them off.
Okay, so Ryan would know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just 'cause I have a second card that I like to keep in my wallet in case I'm in town and I don't have my badge, so I keep it in my wallet.
Keep that.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Keep that on for you.
Okay. So I'll talk with
I'm not gonna cut it.
Craig, you can turn back contingent. Maybe you wanna hold on to that card that we had before, in case you ever need to get into the building. Tim keeps one in his wallet for working hours.
But if you do that, make sure you get with Ryan and make sure he didn't shut it off.
Oh, yeah.
You'll find out when you try it.
Yeah.
Because he may have shut the old cards off.
I'm not gonna keep one.
And by the way, that card doesn't work for the downstairs side
I
door.
joined about.
The new one doesn't?
No, my
I
old
was
one.
doing the spring.
The downstairs side door in the parking
But
lot?
I think
The only
they-
one that hasn't that works there is the judges.
Yeah,
And
John
maintenance.
Friend.
Because I took my own one.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
leaving
volleyball.
when I was at the drain commission.
And they still have
Like that, I turned
funds to
green.
collect in order to
And I opened the
finish.
door and all the alarms went off.
Yeah,
I'm like, why did it turn green?
Yeah, exactly.
It turns green.
Gotcha.
Then it reads the card, and then it goes right to red.
No.
Gotcha. That was something that came out of the courthouse security committee.
Yeah.
You know, that they decided that those two doors
This one,
needed to be
that
locked.
door is blocked, it's barred. But, yeah.
But somehow we couldn't tell the judges that they couldn't use them.
I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah. All right.
Their election would make them elite.
Yeah.
Are these mics on? I always.
Yeah, they probably are.
Oh.
Broadcast all over.
Oh, yeah.
WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
I would like to call to order the Properties, Environment, and Economic Development Committee. Roll call, please.
Mr. Beggs?
Here.
Mr. Hardy?
Here.
Mr. Erickson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Looking for approval of the minutes of August 22, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve.
A second. Hardy.
Been made by Beggs, second by Hardy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Would there be any changes to this agenda? Would anyone have a change to this agenda? Hearing none, we will look for approval of this agenda.
So moved, Walker.
Second. Hardy.
Moved by Walker, seconded by Hardy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Would there be any public comments? Hearing none. Administrator Biard and the bid opening and discussion of the transfer station scales.
Well, as you know, Mr. Walker had been working diligently on getting the RFP ready for that scale bid, and we have received one.
But the good thing about that one is from the company that manufactures the scales. So it ought to be a complete bid. They ought to know what it's like to install it, because they had given us a rough price on installing, you know, two American Classics, so.
Right.
We shall open it.
You can open it.
And I did reach out to the other scale company and asked them to bid that as well, but they said that it would have to be piecemeal because they didn't have the people to do all of what we were asking.
Well, I don't think these people are going to necessarily do all of the work.
Right.
If it's a Fairbanks scale, it's a different scale than we did before.
Yes, we were asking for, one was Cardinal. Cardinal and,
Clam Lake.
okay.
Cardinal and Clam Lake were the two that we had prayed with before. We'll have to take some time and look through this, but the scale itself, the installed price of the scale, installed price is $130,604 for the installed price of the scale, the purchase and the installing of the scale. Their optional scale house and foundation is $21,000. We have to have a scale house to keep the computers in, and I would think we could do something.
Mast mini barn.
Pardon me?
A mast mini barn is,
Well,
or similar.
exactly,
something like that.
exactly what I thought. You know, put something in the mast that you know you can insulate it, and because with the computers, it's going to have to be insulated and everything.
In that scale house, are they talking, is that wired in with all their interconnections, power, or is that?
That's what we requested, was everything all
That's
connected.
what the board did. We will, at break, we'll make a copy.
Okay.
We'll make a copy of this for, it is the excavation for the scale foundation and ramps, the pouring the foundation for it, the pouring for the ramps. 50 by 11-foot platform, 100,000 pound, 120 ton capacity, rocker column load cell design, okay. 12-inch concrete deck, it is a concrete deck on the scale, and not the steel. Full-length single high rub rails, we did ask for rails, you know, as an option, so nobody drives off the edge. 25-year load cell warranty included.
25 year?
25 years on the
That's pretty good warranty.
And I don't know what the exclusions or any of those things are in there. It's the print, the ticket printer is included, you know, for the weight on people coming across. You know, remote display is included. We'll make a copy of this for everybody to look at. It doesn't seem unreasonable, but does anybody have any objections to making a decision whether we're gonna award it at the next meeting, put it on the agenda for the next meeting? And I would like to take this proposal to Rick Wadle and Dan Halleck and ask them if they feel as though it includes everything in it. They're in that business. They put in scales for themselves before. They know whether everything's there. And they've been very helpful for me on writing the specs up on them too.
They haven't mentioned time schedule in there.
Pardon?
That bid, is that good for 30 days or?
Pricing valid for 14 days from the date of the quote. Would you reach out to them and tell them that we're gonna make a decision at the next meeting? You know, when you get a chance. Does anybody think we should make a decision at this meeting, or should we look at it a little bit more?
No,
I'd like somebody to look at it just to say, hey, they forgot
Paul, are you okay with that too?
I would not want to make a decision today on that, no. No, and as you had said, if we talk to Rick or Dan, make sure it's complete and accurate and it's within the ballpark. I'm disappointed there's only one, but we got the one that probably is most important.
Well, and I think everybody's so busy right now. You know, it did go out to Adams, it went out to Halleck, it went out to Wadle. There was one more Beckman that went out to. We did not send it out to White Lake because they told Craig Whiteheisen told me we can't touch it. We're busy for the next 3 years. There's nothing we can do. We can't get tied up with them.
I think that's good.
And I can say that, in previous discussions and what we saw from some of the other bids, that we were looking at close to 100,000 for the scale itself. So,
The other ones were just the hardware, that was no installation.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So you're
That's why I was
looking at.
frowning at the price.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the.
Yes, that's why.
You think of the dirt work and the concrete work that goes along
Right.
with that. Yeah. I really hope that we can move forward with this no matter what happens. If it means that we're gonna still get into the discussion with American Classic, you know, I would like to see us do that. But if we don't get into the discussion with American Classic, as long as I've been on the board, we've talked for 14 years now, how the only way we can make that transfer station come close to breaking even is by having a scale and charging for them coming in. You know, we can't, because we get paid as it goes out by weight.
That takes all the guesstimations out of it.
Right, exactly.
There's no guessing. You know, there will be, I would not be surprised if we would see some ruffled feathers when people are used to coming in with a dump trailer that's filled with shingles, and they go across the scale and they come back and they're told how much it'll be. But we are also supplementing the scale to the tune of over $150,000 a year. You know.
Yeah, we just hope we don't see them on some seasonal road.
Paul, I think we have a consensus from the board members for me to see if anybody finds any big glitches in this, and administrator's gonna get a hold of them and tell them when our next meeting is.
Perfect.
And I'm sure that extra week is not going to be a big problem,
No,
you know, for the pricing.
I don't think so, sir. No. Material Management Planning Committee appointment.
Just 1 second.
Hmm?
Tracy, thank you for getting all those bids out to everybody.
No problem.
You're getting one back.
And I'm emailing him now, so.
Cool. Material Management Planning Committee appointment.
So as you are aware, we've been working on getting a committee together for the Materials Management Planning Committee, which will be working with Windsor Neck. We have 4 positions to fill, and I made it clear to the other counties when we were putting this information together that it was going to be difficult for us to have a board member, one of our board of commissioners sit on that committee because there's only 5 of you. Therefore, I asked that they consider other avenues. So we have 2 positions, 2 elected positions of a city or village to fill, along with 2 business owners that have a managed material of sorts. So could be your farmers. I believe that Mr. McCormick talked about recycling as part of his business. Someone from his business could fill in for that position. People like that. So Curtis got a hold of Mr. Kleiner and with Purdue Farms, and he has agreed to fill one of the business positions. And Lynn Cavazos, as you know with Pentwater, she has been talking with me throughout this entire process and has been, because they have a transfer station, and really has wanted to be involved in this. So we do have those 2 that we'd like to appoint today. But we are also looking for another member of a city, village, municipality, an elected official, and a business owner that doesn't manage material.
Can instead of a business owner, can it be one of supervisors or management in the business?
Yes, it can be someone from a business.
Raise your hand, Vaughn.
Oh, gosh.
No, I get it. I get it.
So, the positions that we're appointing for is to work with Windsor Dick to come up with a plan for those 5 counties.
Well, very good. So we do have 2 of 4.
Yes. So if you hear of anyone or can think of anyone, please maybe put a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Erickson.
Mr. Beggs.
So I know none of us really have the ability to influence this, and being a 5-county association, 21 member board just blows my mind. That's a lot of manpower to, I mean, I understand the need, you know, if you don't have that many people, then Oceana County gets overruled by Muskegon County but holy smokes, that's a lot of people.
I agree. We all said that, all administrators.
Yeah.
You know, Tim, and I have talked about the span of control, you know, at different meetings and everything. And I can tell you, the 20-member District 10 Health Department Board functions very, very well because Kevin Hughes is that much of a motivator and a leader and organizer. Paul, would you agree with that?
That's a wonderful board.
It's amazing.
It's a wonderful
It's
board.
amazing to watch how he puts things through, and he just so it's possible. It's not easy though.
Yeah, and I, you know, Windsor Dick I think they do pretty good work, and they try and stay lean and mean. So I know this also isn't. This is this is what's handed down by
Eagle.
Eagle, you know, and so there's the definition of government bloat is an organization like Eagle. But we just deal with the hand we're dealt, so.
We do not go through one meeting at District 10 Health Department, not one single meeting, but there isn't a discussion about Eagle with the regulations and stuff coming down. And we have one of our members from the District 10 Health Department from Mason County is an attorney, an active attorney, and he heads the legislative committee on it. And you would never ever think that you would hear an attorney in a public meeting say the things he says about a unit of government.
You might hear mechanics saying, but not an attorney, right?
Yeah, hey, you would like what he says, Kevin.
Well, and you know, it goes back to the scale, and it goes back to Lynn Cavazos, but you know, Ron Smith is here and understands the recycling that Crystal's been up to, and you know, Newfield's doing a great job over there with their recycling, and cardboard is huge, you know, and the problems that we've had at our own transfer station through these years. Remember, we saw pictures of boats and campers and airplanes and all kinds, but as I mentioned a little bit earlier with the shingles, you know, Ron sees it so much out in the valley where it is at the end of a 2-track. You know, and Ron's cleaning up a lot of blight out there with the brownstone. Ron's working very hard on cleaning up Crystal, and it's just not easy. We've run into title work on trailers, and it's very tough out there.
I think if we have these two people that are willing to serve on that it's
a start.
It's a good start. And
yep.
Just handle it.
Tracy, were you able to make contact with Connie? That was kind of a short notice conversation that we had.
No, I have not. I have not reached out to her, but I will give her send her an email and see if she.
Thank you. Oh, Administrator Viard, Brownfield appointments.
Yes, they have an opening on the Brownfield for an appointment, and the Brownfield has requested that Chad Robinson be appointed, and then Curtis Burdette and Mary Lou Phillips, they need to be reappointed because their terms are expiring.
Mr. Erickson?
Yes, sir.
Denny Powers called me about Chad Robinson, and he's a licensed engineer, graduated from Michigan Tech, and he said he brought a lot to the table to the Brownfield when he first came to talk to them about being appointed. He said he thinks that he'd be a huge asset, you know, for some of the technical things that they get into and stuff. And it won't be bad for the Brownfield to have somebody with that background when Eagle or anybody else comes talking about, you know, the Brownfield cleanup and the different things. You know, I think we're very fortunate to have somebody with that background that's applying for that position.
Very much so. Thank you, sir. Oh, Administrator Briard, a Planning Commission appointment.
So, Mr. Morse was on that board as a commissioner and has decided to stay on, and so this is an appointment for another position. Gary, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, Phil, I talked to Phil, asked him if he would continue on and take an open spot. We had 2 open spots at the time, and Phil agreed. So we'd like the approval of the commissioners to let Phil fill one of the 2 positions. Since that time, we've had 2 more applications that have come in that are both really good applications, I believe, but we'll be discussing that at our October 3rd meeting. So I'll hopefully come back to you in October, November for a recommendation for the other appointment.
Thank you, Gary.
Very good, thank you, Gary. Administrator Biard. an EPA grant application discussion.
Curtis, I wasn't sure if you were gonna be here today, but do you wanna talk about this?
Sure.
Or Vaughn, one of you?
You better give me a
Or
time-
both.
You better give me a time frame if I get me up there.
I won't set the timer.
Paul,
I promise.
the first question is, why are you seeking this position?
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What's the first thing that you're not happy with?
Well, I'll tell you what hat I'm wearing today. Today I'm a volunteer for the Ladder Community Center.
That's what I,
Okay? Although I work for Valley City Metal Products, also volunteer, and I am helping them, at the Ladder Board, help develop this EPA Community Change Grant that we are requesting that the county submit for us because it requires a county component for submittal. What I have for you, though, is just a little bit of information. I have some. This is a draft layout of the facility, so you can absorb this. And it's on two sides, but I'm not going to go through this with a lot of detail because it'll take too long. But we are talking about the southern portion of the old Kerjol Barber Steel plant. This is the newer portion of the very large 320,000 square foot facility that we would like to have become we call it a resilience hub. It's the language of the grant, but it's really a community center to give support to the area. Have any of you ever visited the back in Whitehall? So this is a very large facility. We're proposing 3 gym floors, multi-purpose floors for volleyball, pickleball, that kind of stuff. Of course, you would have a senior area, you would have a youth area. If you've been to the Ladder, you kind of know what their programming is like. You would have a weight room, you would have a turf area. You would have classrooms, so you could do online learning and make a connection with the community college. As you know, Oceana County, as of this point, doesn't have a connection in county with community college. There's more. We would work with, we would look at doing a FEMA, I want to make sure I display this correctly. So we would look at a business condo type of unit within the facility that would provide small areas for business and or agencies. And we would construct that out of the concrete. So it could also be an emergency evacuation for a level 3, 4, or 5 tornado situation. As you know, this facility is very close to the electric forest, and they've had a couple of years of really bad weather. Also, as a resilience hub, you have, you look at what happened last year at Whitehall, very close to us, in Montague. They were without electricity for a week. So this would have solar, with battery and or diesel backup power generation, potable water, showers facilities, even a laundry part for emergency laundry. So in the area of Rothbury, there is a lot of low-income housing, and it's deemed an area that is low social economic, that fits into this grant criteria. I have been working since June 20th with community representatives on a committee that help put this plan together that reflect what is needed in the community to help them become more resilient in the case of not on a daily basis, but also in the case of an environmental emergency. So it's a very large facility, and it's also connected to an area that would be a farmer's market. I know, this is a very large space.
So there's a part of the facility just north of this proposed area, it's on this plan, it's on the other side, that would have a farmer's market. And it's an area of the oldest part of the building that needs to be demoed. And we would demo it piecemeal, a little at a time, to pull back the roof on a portion of it. So the girders would be seen, would look like a little bit of a factory feel. As you know, Rothbury is a food desert. It doesn't have an active grocery store. It has a dollar store, but fruits and vegetables and the access to meat would be a very important aspect of having the farmer's market. Not to mention farmers being able to sell their wares in the local community and the access for that. So we've applied for other grants to help support the demo. Regardless of whether we get the grant or not, we're going to be moving forward with that demo project because the building needs to be taken care of. I know I missed a number of things in there, but what questions might you have about that project? You might see on the plan that says store. That's literally an open area where a nonprofit, such as the nonprofit in Ludington, that offers a store at a reduced price, that could come in and operate as a nonprofit. When I was talking about meat, you don't usually see that at the farmer's market, but in the store, you can have refrigeration and freezer space in order to sell meat. It becomes a store that would help just supply a need in that area. It does have a splash pad. That'd be kind of cool.
Smoothies and sub sandwiches.
Yeah, so the idea behind this is that we would produce hopefully enough revenue between the business suites, the business condos, agency support, farmers market, some of these other things, that it would help pay for the daily costs of running the community center. You're generating some income to defray your costs of support. Not to mention the green aspect of this, the solar power that would take care of the daily electrical needs and then sell back to consumers.
That's good.
So what we're asking for is your support.
Mr. Bex.
I would just like to say, you know, this is a pretty exciting project. I don't frequent Rothbury, but you know, I know that site has ebbed and flowed. It's been an economic center for years. It's also been a blight for years, and what a great repurpose of a property that's probably beyond its. You know, it takes a great deal of this takes a great deal of energy, but it really is probably past its prime to be an economic center as far as productivity in an industry sense. But we can repurpose it to be a productive community center. It's ambitious, but I love the idea. What an exciting plan to kind of see some of these things, you know, move forward. I think it's a no-brainer to get behind it. It's be awesome to see it come to fruition.
Cool. Mr. Walker.
Often when we see a good project or a project that has so beneficial, government gets in the way and stops it from moving forward. I agree totally with what Mr. Beggs just said, and I don't think this board wants to stand in the way to cause any problem, to any hiccups or any stubbed toes at all.
You know, it's always a little bit of a lotto to whether you get a grant or not. The funding comes from the Inflation Reduction Act. $2 billion was set aside for these grant applications across the United States. You are more apt to get the grant if you stay under the $10 million price tag, which it seems really ironic. Like, that's a lot of money. But it's only like 2% of that 2 billion. So we are hopeful that we've done our due diligence to give us the best shot. And if we don't, it's a shovel-ready project. Maybe something else will come along. Sorry, Bruce, go ahead.
Just to add to that, so, you know, as the board previously approved the contract with that, because the commissioners would be, the county would be the primary applicant in that application. And so we're working on, the application's ready to go. That is, Fishbeck is the contractor that the latter is working with. And so on the Brownfield board, they've been a great partner in preparing everything as part of the grant. There was a question last time about the audit cost, and Fishbeck checked with EPA, and that would be covered if there were a need for that additional audit that can be included in the grant application. So as well as grant administration to the entities involved, so the county could have some grant administration that comes back in that way, or so that would be used for Fishbeck. So there's some things that can be arranged in there depending on the amount of work that's needed to deal with that. So right now we're hoping to get the application in. We're working on finding who has the grants.gov access, which I think is Mary Lou. So we're hoping that when she's back, we can, log in and be able to submit that application.
And I'm sure that you're gonna keep in regular contact with Congressman Molinar's office and encourage him to support it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've had a lot of connection with their state representatives throughout this project, but also
we're dealing with the feds now, so.
Yeah. We are submitting early with purpose, so that we give them enough time, they'll review. If they like the idea, they'll give us feedback, and we can submit again before the deadline of November 21st. That's all right.
One more comment, just, you know, as I look, one thing that really excites me about this project is there aren't many stones unturned. There's youth programming, physical activity, farmers markets, business opportunities, emergency preparation. It's not sure you could fit too many more purposes into a project, and so I think it has the potential to do them all well, and you know, just be kind of an all-purpose area that fills some really interesting gaps that the Rothbury area has. You know, I have an emergency preparedness mindset and involved in a number, so coming from course of public safety, like this is probably something that the rest of the county doesn't even have. Like we've got a couple of storm shelters here or there, but we don't have anything that's really, we don't have any areas that are easily adaptable to like a you know, FEMA safe room, you know. And so I think that's some great insight in the planning of this that hopefully will help you with the grant process too, because that's the multifacetedness of this, that's a word, of this project. If I were sitting in the federal grant awarding authority and look at this, I'd go, well, they've covered a lot of great bases here that I think check a bunch of boxes with good purpose, not just to check the box.
I think it's Troy.
Troy Maloney.
So
yep.
he came and visited the site.
Yeah.
And we would seek out a FEMA grant for construction of that inside facility.
Sure.
Part of that.
Yeah.
Got that.
Yep.
One of the other things about this, the workforce study that the county did with the EDA funds that we finished this year, you know, one of the things that came out is, you know, how we can be a great place for young families. So having resources like this, and we're seeing more of them, you know, Getty Park and the improvements in the Shelby Township Park, and some of the other things throughout the county, so great to have something on that southern end. The other piece of that is 500 of our students go to Montague schools from Oceana County, and 40% of their population. Well, technically, economic development stops at the county line. Our Oceana County College Access Network really focuses on the schools within the county. So a lot of things pull them towards Muskegon County, and something like this that pulls them up towards Oceana County, I think just helps us build those partnerships with the Muskegon organizations are great to work with, so we're trying to do more to build more opportunities with them for those students. But this is just a great way to have something that pulls people up into our county and helps them want to continue their families here.
The Montague superintendent wrote a letter of support for the project.
Very good. Would there be any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Department head reports. There we go.
Just two things. Update on the Marshville Dam boardwalk. I talked to our engineer yesterday. The helical supports that were supposed to go into the project wound up being far more expensive than they ever imagined. Helicals just alone are $100,000 for the boardwalk. So they looked at alternatives, and the alternative is going to a wood post, much like a telephone pole. We're using that same device to support the bridge, so that the knowledge is there. The problem we're running into right now is that the drilling that we've done for test boring samples goes down about 25 feet, and we're in still what's considered to be a muck material. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to basically be pounding these posts into the ground at 30 feet. They're going to have an engineer there who will do seismic testing of the soil to see if that post can be supported by the soil long term. If not, they'll go down deeper, and what they'll do is they'll actually knit the two posts together. So they might wind up with some pilings being as much as 40 feet deep. So one of the problems we have out of Gales Pond right now is that when we put that walkway in a number of years ago, it's now starting to sag in a number of places. And that was probably due to the material that we're going into out there. Back to the situation out at Marshville. So they're expecting to start work probably in the middle of October. The contractor is actually finishing up a job currently right now in the UP. Once he's done with that, Sean will come down and start to put the boardwalk in. The good thing is the extra money it's going to cost, Conservation Resource Alliance was able to find some additional money that was unspent in one of the grants. So they're going to have all the money to completely do this project. So ADA accessible, 5 feet wide, 300 feet of boardwalk, and then 2 fishing platforms that are 10 by 12 at the stream level. Once that's done, we're looking at, with the Parks Board, we're looking at doing some paving of that area to make it ADA, totally ADA accessible. So it will be quite a good spot at that point. Tomorrow, Friday, the Conservation District will be welcoming all the 6th grade students in Oceana County out to Gales Pond for the 6th Station Conservation District Nature Walk. So this is, I think, the 22nd or 23rd year that they've done this. So we have, I won't go through all the stations, but forestry, soils, invertebrates, which kids will actually fish stuff out of the pond, and then they'll look at the different small insects that they're finding in the water. So it's a great opportunity to have Oceana County Parks as part of that program. So, thank you.
Gary, I understand with the pilings and with the boardwalk. When I was village mayor or president in Rothbury, on the west side of the village on Little Wildcat Lake, we wanted to put a fishing pier in there, and we were going to use 8-inch steel casings to put them in. Yeah. And we figured that they'd be 40 feet, at the most. Well, when Towns Brothers started driving and vibrating them in, we had to go, and I went to White Lake Excavating because they had a lot of reclaimed steel that they started vibrating, and that little fishing dock on the west side the pilings ended up being between 98 and 106 feet deep because of all of the muck. You know, when you get into a watershed area like that,
Well, that's why the engineer's gonna be there with the seismic equipment to justify to what level the pilings have to go down to support. It's not a lot of weight, that's the key.
Right.
It's not like we're putting freight or trucks over it like the other bridge, but we wanna make sure that it's good, and for 30 years, maybe 40, 50 years, we don't wanna have to go back and revisit this out of the parks budget. That's the important thing.
Stovall Construction has the helicoils that they put into the ground to, you know, when they put them in, there's a big dial right on their machine that tells us what the pressure it takes to put them down, and they get to a certain area that they put in a huge boardwalk up on the sand dune. But best of luck. I'm glad that you've got the engineer, because you've got a very good engineering firm to work with too.
Yeah, GEI just got the contract from the state of Michigan from Eagle to do all of this, the dune, shoreline sand but review of the whole state of Michigan. So our engineer is gonna be tied up for 3 years, so I'm glad this project's done, because Brian's moving on.
You couldn't have anybody better to work with than the one you selected. Yeah.
Two quick things. One, I believe historically the Oceana County Economic Alliance has typically had 2 board members from the county, one commissioner and the administrator, and we do have Administrator Byer on the board there. So if there is interest, or you know, I think that's typically been there. I don't think there's any requirement for that, but with Mr. Morse no longer being Commissioner Morse, there is an opportunity if the county is interested. So the second thing, just wanted to share, there's been, you know, housing is such a critical issue. Earlier this year, the Brownfield tax increment financing plan had a big change to become a housing tax increment financing plan, which basically means that in Brownfield, up to 20 years of development, up to 100% of the property taxes can be recaptured to the Brownfield Board and repay that developer for costs. With housing, it's 30 years that can happen, and so it makes it a bit more. Its costs are so high and everything else. Michigan is inviting that, and so we've had some conversations. I've connected some of our developers or emerging developers, folks who haven't done development before, and so, you know, really trying to just help share the information if there's interest in that. That gets that would go through the Brownfield board. It would go to the commissioners following that if there were a plan, and each of those would be approved by the local entities as well, wherever that would be developed. But just knowing the need for housing, and it's hard to get construction companies and developments going, and so just it's exciting to have people who are asking, hey, would this make sense? There have been 7 approved so far, and the requirement is that technically only one house or one unit has to be at 120% of average mean income, which is close to $70,000 in Oceana County. So it means that on a 3-bedroom, the rent or the mortgage with everything, that monthly housing payment would have to be under $2,500. But you know, typically they're seeing about a minimum of 10%, 10 to 20% of the units are in that range, and the rest can be whatever. Some of that money can be used to subsidize the rent control for that. So you know, just interesting to see that we have folks who are wanting to find out how they can make it pencil out to do some housing developments in other areas of the capital.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Curtis. Any other public comment? Mr. McKean.
Speaking public. I have some past experience with scales. Worked for a company for 12 years, foreman of a steel company. We had 14 scales in one department. There was always a scale an issue. I would strongly suggest that your scale supplier also, you get a contract from them for repair or particular maintenance, maybe a maintenance contract on the scale. There's always some little thing that goes wrong, but you might consider that. And secondly, materials management. The conservation district is probably the best recycler in the county. This last year, they've taken 2 truckloads of tires out, about close to 2,500 tires. And working with Farm Bureau, they took, I believe, 1 or even 2 trailers of farm tires, large tractor tires. And this last August, we took 24,000 pounds of household hazardous waste out of the county. Now, several of the counties in the state of Michigan actually have the conservation run their recycling program. So I would think that we might want to talk to maybe Linda Hernans at the Conservation District with the MEAT program. Linda is on the recycle board for, I believe, 3 or 4 counties that they're connected to: Lake, Manistee, and Mason, yeah. So it might be just a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll adjourn.
All set? All right, I'd like to call to order the Finance and Administration Committee. May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Beggs.
Here.
Mr. Hardy.
Here.
Mr. Erickson.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
I'd ask for a motion for approval of the minutes from the meeting of September 12th, 2024.
So move.
Support, Walker.
Moved by Erickson, support by Walker. Any conversation, comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll ask for approval of the agenda.
So move.
Moved by Erickson, support by
Walker.
Mr. Walker. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Is there any public comment this time for Finance and Administration? Hearing none, we'll move on. Administrator Biard, the Animal Control Ordinance, 2024-96.
The board had asked at the previous meeting for some changes to be made with regards to the animal control ordinance. Those changes were made, and I am bringing that back to you for consideration.
I read your, it looks good to me, yeah.
Yeah, changes made were fine. Remind me the process. We approve and it goes out for public review, or I don't remember what happens there.
So the Board of Commissioners approves it, and then a publication is placed in the paper.
Okay.
So it does not go into effect until it is published. It has been put out, a public notice has been put out to the community.
Do we have a 30-day waiting period for people to make public comments before it takes effect?
No.
I know some are that way, but
yeah.
Can we voluntarily do that?
we can set a 15 or 30-day public comment period until it takes effect.
I kind of like that idea. You know, I'd like to throw it out there and you know, allow the public an opportunity to speak their mind on it, and if we hear some good points that need to be changed, I like the idea of being able to give the people opportunity to speak into it before we pass it. So.
I think it's a very valid point, Ken. Just that it'll take effect 30 days, you know, after publication. We'll accept comments for 30 days after publication. We'll set a date on it.
Yeah, I'd funnel those into the administrator's office to come to us.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Then we could discuss them at the end of 30 days, or, you know, I guess funnel those that input to us as it comes in, but we could discuss it at the end of the 30 days at whatever our next meeting is, and if we need to make any changes or reconsider anything, we can look at it and go from there.
And from a realistic standpoint, we don't pass that many ordinances that it's gonna harm us at all.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's,
get people-
there's no urgency, and I'd like to give the public the opportunity to speak into it. Due diligence is what I call that, so.
There you go. All right, moving on. Consideration to approve resolution 24-14 for authorized signature for airport MDOT contracts. Ms. Biard?
So, on occasion, there are contracts or items that need to be signed by MDOT for the county airport. They are asking for an authorized signer. Dr. Sobey had done that in the past, and this is nothing that, would be signed before the board has a chance to even look at those documents. It's all done by approval by the board.
I am all in favor of that 150%. But for no other reason that the majority of the MDOT contracts have to be signed electronically. And for the administrator to do it is far, far easier than to have the chairman of the board do it.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on. Mr. Biard, consideration to approve the MDOT bipartisan infrastructure law agreement, 2024-110.
So this is, with regards to the airport, again, MDOT is requesting that the bipartisan infrastructure law agreement be signed by the county board, or by the county for any grants that they have. And they have some things that were awaiting this before they could finish up on those. And I believe those are listed in that document.
That's for the marking and lighting.
Yes.
Work on the runway.
The runway lighting, yes. And Brandon Newhoff is the one that's working on that for us.
Any other questions or comments?
I think Prime Newhoff is one of only 2 engineering firms in the state of Michigan that can do airport work.
Yeah.
They have to be licensed by the Department of Transportation in order to do any work on the airport's a completely different system. I think there's only 2 of them.
Yeah. Captain Market. Moving on, Administrator Biard, consideration to approve the L4029, setting the 2024 tax millage rates, 2024-11.
In your packet is the L4029, 2024 tax millage rates from the equalization director. Those